All right, what's up, everybody? Good to be back. Sorry about the 3-minute delay. I had to fix the internet before we even started going. So the positive aspect of that, right, is hopefully we won't have any issues, right? That's the ultimate goal, if you will. So let me go ahead and tilt this camera up just a tad. That way we can get Briar's name in it because she's gonna play a big role in it, right? Okay, so thank you everybody for joining me. Really do appreciate it. We got a little bit to talk about. This probably is not going to be a really long stream. I just saw some discussion that I thought was very interesting. Also, by the thumbnail, I don't want people to come to the conclusion that I think whoever is complaining about the meta is a baby or anything like that. It's just something Kyle made that was very funny, and I was like, let's roll with it. I doubted him for a second, but I was like, no, let's do it. Let's do it. And so the reason that I can't come to that conclusion of, if you complain about the meta, that you're a baby is I'm one of those people. And I wanted to kind of like how I did in that one stream that did really, really well. The state of fab, if you will, and basically just present the evidence of like both sides and kind of like just understand, it's okay to not like where things are, but I think it's at least if you intend on being invested in the game, it's very important to know why things are how they are. Is it a good reason? Is it a bad reason? And kind of just have that underlying understanding of why things are the way they are currently, right? And because I just really feel like there's a disconnect of like either the consensus on Twitter, which is obviously not the best avenue of communication, but it seems like the consensus is either your hero's not relevant and you're complaining, or you're hyper competitive and there's too much variance in the game, or on the other side where things are just fine, maybe take a break. All of those are extremely like valid answers, and I just kind of wanted to kind of like combine the two sides and come up with a decent understanding. You finally didn't steal a topic from me. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad. Let me get caught up in chat. Best thumbnail ever. See, I mean, it is what it is. This should be fun. It's definitely me. Meta says I can beat New as Enigma, but New stomps me all over the place. Very interesting. There are a lot of neat interactions with that matchup. I do not think that Enigma is as favored as they make it out to be. It's definitely favored. I'm not gonna go that far out, but there are some very neat interactions that can put in some work. It's me. I never doubted even a second, but it's also Traverse is broken. Traverse is one hell of a card. That is a fact. I've thought a lot about the meta, and I think my overall thoughts are that I actually don't think anything is fundamentally wrong. But some heroes feel left behind, and that feels bad. I do agree with a lot of that. And the fact that nothing's wrong, I mean, yes, if this is like the style that you like, then sure. But Jacob, by that definition, I'm very curious to know if maybe if you think things are perfectly fine now, did you have a problem during that dusk till dawn, bright lights kind of era? Because I don't see any one person. Like it's kind of weird because I don't see any one person like really, really liking bright lights, dusk till dawn kind of situation, and also liking the misspell. I haven't met that person yet. Maybe they're out there. I'm not sure, but I'd be very interested to know. It's weird to look at a hero like Kasai who was chilling before, but Victor gets gets visit, KO gets sash, Levia gets horror, and she's just there. Yeah. I had her in like A tier in the tier list, and then she dropped all the way down to what, C? I mean, it was actually just, yeah, astronomical, the difference that one set could make on whether a hero is valid or not. It's actually very interesting. So, first things first, I want to wish everybody safe travels if they are going to Amsterdam or traveling for any events. I have heard so many people on Twitter say that they, I'm just going to call it Twitter. I can't do the X thing. I don't have anything against it. It's just so ingrained into my mind that I can't do it. Can't do it. But basically, I didn't really like Bright Lights, Dusk Till Dawn. See, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Where you can't really like both of them. You kind of like have to pick one and kind of die on that hill kind of situation. It's very interesting. But I heard on Twitter that a lot of people's flights are getting delayed. Like not just small delays, but like days delayed. All because of like the backup for, what happened with the CrowdStrike IT infrastructure thing that happened. I believe it was last weekend. So hopefully everybody gets to make it to Amsterdam somewhat on time before the tournament. Hopefully that's what we ultimately want, right? I don't want anybody to miss the tournament for those reasons. It'd be a super feels bad, for sure. But safe travels to everybody on their way. And if you're already there, have a great time enjoying Amsterdam. I know it's a phenomenal place, and I hope everybody has a great time. I wish I could be there. But I actively chose not to be. It wasn't a did I have the ability to or anything like that. It was I just kind of fundamentally chose to kind of sit this one out. And I'm gonna explain my reasoning, my thought process. It kind of ties into the meta, and that is a piece of it, not all of it. It's a piece of it, and just kind of use some of that as like a talking point for what's wrong, or is there even anything wrong, and how do we approach it to understand it better, to maybe improve it or steer it in some direction. My number one goal with these types of streams, specifically like the State of Flesh and Blood and then this one, is if LSS wants to use it as a resource to just hear the community. I'm not going to present every idea in the world that's going to fix everything. I don't know enough. I don't claim to. But what I can do is I can read chat. I can communicate with all of you. You say you like this. I'll say, well, this, and we can come to some sort of conclusion on what direction we may or may not want. And they can just use that as a data point, right? Doesn't mean that they will, but I just want to do my part and kind of just provide that, right? That's the whole point of this. It's not to stir up anything or anything like that, just simply trying to communicate. So we already have a whole bunch of stuff in chat. So before we actually hit on the main topic, let me go through this. And some of it we might just hit during the topic, right? So Jacob, I was correct when I said that you would probably dislike the Bright Lights, Dusk Till Dawn error. So yeah. Honestly, I really like the meta. I'd rather have this meta than Dromine Lexi. And that, once again, nothing wrong with enjoying this meta. Not a problem at all. You just have to define what a good meta is. Like, I doubt every hero will be viable at the same time, but it feels like there's a decent number of decks that are all pretty viable. And that's one of the things that we're going to have to identify is what is a good meta. We're going to have to also identify when does the state of the meta supersede other aspects of the game. That's actually the most important part that we're probably going to hit on first. Whereas sometimes there are certain things that come before the meta in talking big business and stuff like that. And no, I'm not talking about just selling more boxes. It goes way deeper than that. Way deeper than that. I don't know what happened to my comment, but I recorded a similar video to the topic you're talking about right now. I feel most people don't understand the box LSS is in and the box they themselves are in. Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about that. People just need to take a step back and see what's going on in front of them. I actually have a theory on why the decisions were made. None of this was designed around any like insider information or anything like that. I'm just straight up guessing. It's an educated guess, kind of a little bit of reverse engineering going on, but let me know what y'all think when we get to it. Personally, I think Zen is gonna get eroded in some shape or form. I mean, that could never happen. A hero eroded? No shot. No shot. Maybe Art of War can go too. I don't know. Art of War is one of those cards. It's iconic, right? I think I have to come to terms that I wanted the game to be more powerful. This is what it looks like. Currently, just super excited for what Rosetta adds. I can definitely relate to that. I can definitely relate. Exactly, Jacob. A lot of people hated it. Yeah, I was one of those people. I was in that boat where toward the end of like heavy hitters meta, I was like, this is too like math, 2 for 8s, block a little bit. It's just too like Excel spreadsheety. And then they were like, all right, well, here you go. And, some people are still complaining and, that's okay. And we're going to talk about all that. In my opinion, the best thing to do is keep similar power level to right now and just give old hero powerful specs to beef them up. By the way, Nathan, we playing CS2 tonight. I got some free time. Depends on how long the stream goes, but I can probably sneak in a game or two, of course, Yeah, 100%. Or that's a lot of percent. I'm hoping we see some powering up of struggling heroes and have Rosetta add some new archetypes. I'd be so happy. Absolutely. Nathan about to start World War III. You know what the issue is with Fab right now? As a whole, we don't currently have a good viable rule. Somebody understands. Somebody understand. That was my whole theory, that the world is just off kilter because of the lack of competitive. No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully that's about to change. Hopefully that's about to change. So let's go ahead and dig into the main topic. I'm finally caught up in chat, and let's break down. Okay. I think we can all come to the conclusion that there is a level of power creep in Heart the Misfell. I don't think there's a single person in the game of Flesh and Blood that would deny that statement. So that is a statement that we are going to work with. There is power creep in Heart the Misfell specifically, right? And we have to ask ourselves. So the last time, once again, we're gonna approach this using nothing but logic and reasoning, no emotion. We're gonna try and figure out what's going on, why it's happening, and maybe there's a bigger reason in the background. So the last time that we saw a power level of this type would be going back to Tales of Aria / Monarch. And then Everfest as well. I would say that whole block, that whole set expansion would be the closest rival to the power level of Heart the Misfell. And there's a debate to be had on whether it's more powerful, less powerful. We'll save that for another day. That's not the point. But we're just going back, right? And I think LSS has kind of actively came forward and said, look, it was designed during COVID. There were a lot of obstacles. It wasn't ideal. There was more testing to be done. So it's not where things wanted. It's not where they wanted it to be. They did not want Tales of Aria and Monarch to be quite that powerful, right? So why would they do it again? That's a relative statement, right? We're not saying that's the same power level. We're not saying it's more. We're not saying it's less. We're just saying why are we revisiting something that is of relevant levels? If they said the first time, oops, basically, didn't, uh, you know, why would they double down on it, essentially? Let me read a couple comments. I can't lie, with Fab being my first TCG and starting in Tales of Aria, I hated high powered up formats and heroes, but looking back now, I had more fun back then than I did in the powered down metas. So I'm glad to see some high powered things coming. It's pretty fun trying to figure out. I agree. I don't think anybody wants to go back to the 2 for 8 days, but there is a sweet spot, right? There is that mid-rangey kind of feel that does. It's kind of the roots of Flesh and Blood, that very, making trades and longer games and actually worrying about your pitch stack and stuff like that, those are important. So why is LSS going back to something that they previously said oops on? And I have a theory, and it's going to help justify, maybe, if the theory is correct. I don't know if it is, but it would very, in my eyes, it would justify why they went the route that they did, because it's very easy to make traverse block for 0, right? Theoretically, you could just make traverse block for 0 or even 1, and maybe, obviously it's not going to fix the meta. I don't think one value is changing everything, but as we all know, Part the Misspell was the set that they were going to use for the entry point into the Japanese TCG market. We know this for a fact, right? They planned the world premiere there. They put worlds there. I mean, everybody can come to the logical conclusion that a lot of, you can even see the flavor in Part the Misspell, and you can see how a lot of it was kind of tailored toward that area, right? And that's great, right? It's a very important market for LSS to get into. There's a lot of customers there, and very, both, there's a lot of great Magic competitive players that come from Japan. There is obviously the monetary value of having those customers, because there's a lot of products sold there. So it's a very important market. Now, let's ask ourselves, let's put on our pastel colored polos, okay? Let's do a little exercise, right? For 24 hours, you're in charge of all LSS operations. You get to call all the shots, right? And your job is to break into the Japanese trading card game market. That's your job. And you're specifically assigned to creating a set. How do you make that set? Right? Obviously, you can put flavor stuff in there, which they already did. We've already talked about that. But more so, what does the set need to accomplish? What are you trying to... What direction are you moving the game in to help the transition into that market? Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at the market. And what does the market like? What does the market enjoy? Okay, so I did a little bit of research. And I pulled up the top 15 TCGs sold on a revenue basis for the Japanese trading card game market. Okay. And number one to me was kind of unexpected. I expected Yu-Gi-Oh! To be the most popular TCG in Japan, and it by 3 times on a revenue basis Pokemon was the most sold at almost like 900 million revenue of Pokemon in the Japanese market. With Yu-Gi-Oh coming in second at 300 million, Duel Masters coming at 185, One Piece at 170, Weiss Shorts at 89 million, and then 1/3 of Weiss Shorts is Magic the Gathering. That may come to a shock to a lot of you that Magic the Gathering is the 6th most popular trading card game in Japan on a revenue basis. Obviously, is that the perfect metric to describe what the most popular TCG? There's other metrics like how many people are playing it, yada yada yada. Some of that's collecting, so whatever. I understand, but I'm just using something that's like solid enough evidence for a stream topic, right? Correct. And I agree with what Metal is saying, where Pokemon is the biggest casual appeal and it's not even the same market. And I 100% agree. We're trying to draw comparisons, right? Because once again, our job as LSS for the day is to break into the Japanese market, right? And we're trying to find how we can steer a set and kind of placate to those people to increase the chances of them enjoying the game. And what is the commonality in those top 5 TCGs that I just mentioned for Japan? Well, they're all animated, right? Flesh and Blood can't redo their whole art style, and I mean, they can like change it a little bit, like how they did. The Marvels were absolutely beautiful, right? On how they did the Marvels and stuff like that, and it was just very, very well done. So they kind of did what they could, right? But they couldn't make like an actual animated set in Flesh and Blood. It would just feel off. It would feel, I don't know, forced or something like that. So obviously Flesh and Blood does not have the option to placate to that market via that method, right? So that's out the window. We can't do that. We can't make an animated set. Doesn't make sense. What else does Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Duel Masters, One Piece, and Weiss Shorts have in common? I'm not an expert on all things TCGs. I know a little bit about Pokemon. I know a little bit about Yu-Gi-Oh, and I know a little bit about One Piece. Duel Masters and Weiss, I don't know one thing from the next. So I'm going to use, because it's all I have the knowledge for, period, is Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and One Piece. Those 3 card games, what do they have in common that Flesh and Blood can theoretically like basically incorporate into a set design aspect? What can you move from one to the other? And the answer is explosiveness. That's the answer. Pokemon. From conversations that I've had, at one point in time, one of the best cards in the game was a card called Battle Scanner. And all it did was discard the top 5 cards of your deck. And you would literally like mill yourself and then play fetch cards that got cards out of your graveyard and put them straight into play, and you didn't have to worry about drawing them. Yu-Gi-Oh. We all know what playing Yu-Gi-Oh is. It is literally probably the most explosive or combo oriented or do a whole bunch of game actions kind of thing. And you know, they're explosive. One Piece is also explosive. Maybe a little bit less, but from what I've heard people talking about, once again, I don't know too much about One Piece, but I'm just going off of the conversations I've had. any Bandai game on the planet has astronomical amounts of power creep every single set, right? I think that's a pretty safe assumption. So, once again, okay, so the IPs are important. That is correct. But once again, I think IPs only take it so far. I think because people in Japan are actually playing this game, right? And if the game is not good or if it's not tailored toward what you enjoy, you're not going to like it. So all three of the examples I gave, not power creep, it's power leap. That was a good one, Andrew. Really good. So once again, our job for the day as calling the shots for LSS to design a set to break into the Japanese market. And we have to find something that we can incorporate into the game to help placate to what those people like, right? Because that's the market that you're trying to get into. You do that in any form of business. Anytime you're trying to establish a new marketing base, you have to kind of target it, right? By giving the people what they want. And that's the option that LSS had. I don't know if this conversation happened. I just think that LSS is full of very, very smart individuals and came to the conclusion that the best way to get into the Japanese trading card game market is to emulate some of the aspects of the top 5 TCGs in the Japan TCG market. And I believe that the decision was made to do that via explosiveness, to do it in a way of like more physical game actions, aka searching, tutoring, shuffling your deck. These are all interactions found in those 3 card games. More so than Fab has ever done in any set ever. Right? So if they decided years ago that they were going to use this set as an introduction to the Japanese trading card game market, I'd make it explosive as shit. I would make Traverse Block for 2. I'd make sure that anybody that I would make sure that the players were well sheltered from any card that said, you know, oh, you're not going to be able to do this? Let me block 7. I would have done the same thing. I think it was the smartest decision as far in regards to acquiring potential players in the Japanese TCG market. And I think it was a very brilliant decision. Now, can we draw a logical conclusion on where we go from there, right? As far as, so we've come to not necessarily, Brian actually confirmed exactly that on Push the Point earlier this weekend, so I didn't even see that. But hey, that's cool. All right, we're on the same page. Okay, so yeah, so basically, was a smash success. Has me thinking you're right about that. Okay, so basically, this set was used to enter in that market. It was used as a marketing vessel, if you would, to get into the Japanese trading card game market, which is brilliant. It's very smart. It's very smart of LSS to do it that way, to give those individuals exactly how they like to play games. Now, the question is, if we go in that direction for one set, are we stuck in that direction? And I think that brings probably the most interesting point to the discussion is, now that we've dedicated a set toward that direction by that magnitude, do we have the ability to kind of take a step back, right? And I think the answer is yes. I think that we do have the opportunity to take a step back. It just can't be too far back, right? I think that basically what we've done is we've abandoned the power threshold that is bright lights and dusk till dawn, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think for most metrics, those are probably some of the worst sets in LSS's history. And so I think that LSS can stay on par, slightly under, for the next few sets and be perfectly fine. However, like it was mentioned in chat earlier, one of the techniques that they can use is give really pushed cards to kind of bring everyone up, you know? And that's a very, very good way to do it. Now, how do you do that is the very difficult part, right? Because there's no way that with an expansion slot, they can take like 1 or 2 sets and then just lift every hero up, right? What they can do is the next set that has that class in it, they can kind of get them where they need them, right? So it puts every class on like a year to year and a half cycle on when they get their next bump, with Wizard being probably the longest gap, Wizard and Mech, if you will, in the history of Flesh and Blood. So let me get caught up in, yeah, Brian actually confirmed exactly that. Yeah. That's the pertinent question. Yeah, can we take a step back? It's a very interesting one. The next 2 sets have to be around the same power level as MST to keep engagement, else it's not going to hit the landing, I feel. So that's actually a very interesting point. Does LSS have the ability to pull the rug out from under Partha Misfell? And I think that the answer to that question relies on how good do you think the game of Flesh and Blood is. Because I think the game of Flesh and Blood is so good that all LSS had to do is get the people in the Japan market to play the game a couple times. I think the game is that good. Now, let's take somebody that has the opinion that maybe it's not the best game, right? Maybe it's top 3, top 4, but not like sitting at number 1 clearly, which is where I think it sits. But let's look at it from a viewpoint of someone that doesn't think it's the best. Well, then you're absolutely 100% correct. If you were to pull the market, right, if you were to remove that explosiveness that you injected into the game for that market, then the first thing that those customers are going to ask themselves is, was that a one-time thing? You know, this is the game I signed up for. But I think if your game's great, if you just get them to engage with Flesh and Blood is one of those. I'm trying to think of like a product in history where, like, if you just get somebody to do it once, they understand the value that it is. And I can't make any mental connection currently, but I think Flesh and Blood is good enough to where if you really get it in the hand and you make a good effort, which I think they're doing with basically with World Championship, the World Premiere, and so forth. I think that after Rosetta, because you still want to keep it for the World Championship, right? That's the number one thing. You want to keep that high power level long enough to get to the World Championship in Osaka. But after that, I think you can a little bit. I think you can pull the rug just a little bit, and you can go a little bit lower. So, you know, that's my prediction. My prediction is that Rosetta will be, and I'm a little bit biased here, you know, clearly a tad biased, but I'm trying my best to just remove it all. I really do think that Rosetta is going to be at a somewhat similar power level as MST to kind of finish the push into the Japanese. I do not want to underestimate how important the Japanese trading card game market is for card games. It's extremely important, right? So that's what I think. Now the question is, does Rosetta come in just above, just below, right on par with Part the Misfell? Who knows? Another unique way that LSS could do it is, this is very interesting, is what if they designed a set that counters Part the Misfell? Right? Like, what if they literally made a set where like most of the heroes just dunk on Part the Misfell heroes due to a mechanic, surprise, called Arcane? I hate to break this to you via stream, but it's very difficult to pitch for Arcane, play a blue, and transcend. It's very difficult to do that. So just maybe, this is all theory, this is all, I'm not going off of any information, but just maybe the heroes in Rosetta are designed in a way to where they specifically target Part the Misfell. And that has a unique effect of pulling the rug, right? Or simulating the pulling of the rug, right? By basically telling those heroes to basically sit the fuck down, effectively. And no, once again, Shamir, I agree. It's going to be powerful, but there's a lot of room where it could be a little less powerful and then target. I think there's a lot of room there on, where I think it has potential, right? Let's see. I think there's a two-way street. Let me get caught up in chat real quick before we progress the discussion any further. I think making the set aggressive is saying Fab is in the same as other games. That back and forth chess match is what Fab can do. Others can't as well. I do agree with that. But at the same time, I think they're just using this as a tool to get into the Japanese market. That's my theory. I think the failing of the crown is already in that direction. I've already said that I think that's the next Codex of Frailty, me personally. We're seeing medium level disruption that slips around armor. That card is absolutely playable. I agree. Or maybe like uprising level instead of tail. So yeah, exactly. Something like that. Where it's like close, but maybe not quite there. How do you break everyone? You give an old talent. Yep. It's all good anyways. Aurora's about to single-handedly. Yep. I can't wait for Aurora. I'm so excited. I feel like the price is the biggest issue in this game. I feel like I like this game, and when I bring up this topic, I get flamed without fail. But some of these cards are so expensive, I play other games. It's a very good point. And I truly wish. So my story, I'm not going to rehash it over and over again, but I played Yu-Gi-Oh! For exactly like one weekend before I got into Flesh and Blood, because I knew I wanted to play a trading card game, because I played it when I was, I played like kitchen table stuff when I was a kid, and I was like, I want to redo that. I want to pick that up as a hobby. And I went to one like Armory, right? And I bought like a competitive deck. Like I think on a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck, I spent, I want to say like $600, give or take. The problem was, and directly, by the way, after the Armory, I literally sold it to somebody right after the Armory. I was like, this is not the game for me. This is not it. And So, but one thing that I kept in the back of my mind was I was like, what is that deck worth today? And I asked that question like probably 6 months after. It was worth less than $100. They literally threw everything in a starter deck or a tin can or this Uber product, XL, whatever, just 14 million different products hitting the shelf every single day. And they literally just reprinted every single card in the deck. And it took my $600 deck to the value of, which I'd already sold, so I didn't care. I was just curious. Literally took it to literally $100. So that's great for, and then of course, by the time it was $100, the deck was completely irrelevant. So comparing it to the only other situation in my TCG history, I don't think Flesh and Blood is expensive, but I don't know what games you play. I don't know what your experience is. I don't have a bigger sample size to kind of either give justification to that reasoning or not. It's just a hobby that I enjoy, that I can afford, and it's as simple as that. It's the way that I look at it. But in MST, Ninja got nothing of real value, only Mystic Ninja. I think they're going to keep doing that going forward. I think they'll use very niche interactions. Like, I think that Viscera is going to get a big bump in Rosetta and maybe Vincent. I think that's a stretch, though. And it's because he needs one. It's not because they have to. I think it's because they can make any card elemental in the set. They could theoretically not print a single just Runeblade card. They can make everything elemental Runeblade, right? And it would not impact the draft at all, right? Because both Runeblades are elemental. So, but I think that is one of the biggest balancing aspects that they have, because if they just plug that Mystic tag on it, they don't have to balance it with the other heroes. So are they going to do that with every single card? Like, obviously not, but it is a very convenient balancing mechanic to stick a talent on something. It's also a great way to break the game. But, who's counting? Tiger Katsu is the best ninja. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Actual answer is Shoehorn. Love that item. Fuck is Shoehorn? Personally, think LSS could do the rug pull, but Japan is cutthroat. This game, to me, is the best TCG ever made, but if you can't play the fighting game, you won't play Fab. I do kind of agree with that notion. Obviously, Japan has to be cutthroat simply because I know they have probably more options, right? And if capitalism does its thing, the better product stays on top, right? We don't need sets where you have a new top dog each time. I think it's possible. Let classes be playable. Lacking classes, bring them up to par. I mean, yeah, for sure. But you have to do it in a way to where there's still excitement in the set, right? Just imagine if Part the Misfell came out, they had a huge premiere, and then the Pro Tour comes around, and all three heroes make up a total of 10% of the meta. Obviously, I think it's a little. I'm not saying they did it right. I'm just saying that anytime you make an argument like that, you have to look at the other side, right? So, like right now, I think that they're, all three heroes are making like 50% or 60% of the meta, right? Whereas, what if they were only 10%, right? Then it's like, it's very difficult because you want excitement. You want to be able to move product, right? It's a very important aspect, and you want people to be excited about the game, the new set, and you want people to acquire the new cards and be excited about it. Especially because Flesh and Blood already has the disadvantage of kind of like, let's say you play Ranger and Rosetta comes out. You get one card and maybe some generics, right? But probably just one card. And other than that, that's it, right? And yes, at least you get something. It's better than what happened before, where you literally got absolutely nothing, right? So I think when a set comes out, it needs to deliver that punch, right? For the people that have been waiting, right? They've been getting one card for so long, and when it comes their time, like boom, it's got to be there, right? That's my thought process anyway. My Teklo deck is like 360 USD with all 47 Majestics. Holy shit. It's like a deck of Majestics. And 2 legendaries, and I'd argue it's this for hybrid max. Okay. Yes, Fab doesn't reprint stuff to the ground. That's good. I'm an old Yu-Gi-Oh guy, and you do have a window to use cards and they get reprinted, or you're down a lot of money. Yep. That's like $100 deck. 2 legendary headpieces. Yeah. So once again, the whole price argument, I don't have, I just don't have the data points. Like I this is the only TCG that I've like really given a shot. And man, I picked the right one to do it. I guess I got lucky. Yu-Gi-Oh has an insane reprint policy. I agree. One Piece is insane. I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh refugee, and balance is night and day. The initial onboarding of Fab stings a lot, but buying into classes get you farther than trying to build 6 decks at once. Yep, that's a great point. Can't really defend Fab's price or their reprint philosophy. It also helps that this game is balanced. Honestly, only meta decks and the good generic staples are expensive. I agree with that. Like, what everybody in chat, if you're listening and you have access to type in chat, let's take a card that is at majestic rarity. And let's say that 60 to 70% of the decks that are played at a Nationals and Pro Tour level run 3 copies of it. What should that card cost? What do you think is like, that's a fair price? Majestic rarity, and it's played as a 3 of in more than half of the decks played at like serious events. So like honestly, like cards that we would be like considering the threshold of is like, I mean, Command and Conquer is like pushing like 80, 90%, right? Now $100, are you saying that's $100 per card or for the set? That's a big difference. Because like for me personally, I feel like $30, $40 is like fine. Like that's kind of where my threshold is. Like I feel fine. Like if it's a staple, right? Like it's being played, I feel like that way, like people that open it in the box, they get a hit, it's like a good balance kind of. Yeah, everybody's saying like $40, 30, 100 for the playset. That's about 33. Yeah. Okay. So I was just kind of curious where everybody's mind was on like the price of like a staple majestic. A guy named Deck Flare came out with a video yesterday talking about each game's prices. Only MTG Modern was more expensive. Yeah, well, okay. Let's talk about that for a sec, because I don't know who that is, or I have definitely not seen the video. But I don't know how they made that. So let's take One Piece as an example, right? Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not super knowledgeable about One Piece, but One Piece operates in colors, right? You have like red, purple, green, blue, whatever. If you buy a red deck, right? You build a red deck. Let's say it costs, I don't fucking throw a number out there, $300, $400, right? And you have a red deck. If you want to go get a green deck, it's probably going to cost you the same amount of money, right? If I had to get, once again, I'm just speculating. I don't know too much about it. There's probably some generics in One Piece, but like for the most part, I would have to make the argument that like you probably have to buy a lot of staples, right? Whereas in Flesh and Blood, like once you have a tunic, it literally knocks like $100 off every single deck you'll ever build in the future, just about, right? Once you have like literally once you have your staples, the cost to acquire a new deck is literally a couple $100 tops. But yes, I do agree that the barrier to get those staples is kind of high. You know, E-strikes are like $20 a pop. That's $60. CNC probably still around 70 or so. So that's like 110. So you're at 270. A tunic 370. So Art of Wars, you know, like just buying generic staples can cost you $500, right? Very easily. But once you have them, once you're done with that hurdle, the rest is like smooth sailing, right? You can just literally pick up a whole ninja deck for a couple $100. You pick up a dash deck for $100. You can pick up a Teklo deck for less than that. I mean, whatever avenue you go, I just don't see it being like crazy expensive once you have the staples. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You know, like $500 for some staples, that's a lot of money, right? We're not talking about a small chunk of change. So I can definitely kind of sympathize with that. But at the end of the day, this is a hobby, and it's definitely not the cheapest hobby on the planet either. So, but once again, I think to do it mathematically correct, if you were to make 100% accurate comparison, I think what you would have to do is you'd have to take each card game and build the top 7 decks. Like literally build the top 7 decks. And then add all those numbers up and average it out. I think that's what you would have to do to come up with a fair comparison, to make a comparison close to Flesh and Blood, right? Because you can make a black green deck or a red blue deck in Magic, and you know, like you're gonna have a little bit of like carryover in Magic, of course, but of course Modern is just pretty expensive in general because a lot of older cards and whatever. But I think if you did it that method, then I think Flesh and Blood would be probably average. I'm not going to be delusional enough to say it's one of the cheapest, but like it's probably average. I think it's probably average. We'll never agree. I'm in a Discord for a new card game with a large Pokemon fan base and a combo game up, and most people didn't want to spend more than $100 for an entire meta deck list. Holy shit. $100 for a whole deck? At that point, so if that's the case, if that's like what's happening, then there's no collectible side to the game, right? Like you're just effectively buying your deck, and you have to be just lighting your money on fire. Like there's no resale, there's no exiting, there's nothing like that. Supply and demand kicks in at about 40 per, in my opinion. I do agree with that. But like generic staples should be reprinted to the ground. And that's a valid argument. Once again, like, would I be upset that my CNCs go from, you know, look, I'm already a victim of that. So if it happens a little bit, look, let me tell you a story. I came into this game when first edition Crucible of War was the only Crucible of War. There was no unlimited. We're talking blue Mavrian Skies, rare, non-foil, fucking $6. Okay? For a rare chat. Chat, I'm about to tell you what I spent on my playset of Spoils of War. Spoils of War. Yeah, that warrior card that costs 1, that blocks 3, that gives +2, and next attack gains go again. A play set of those, $70 a piece. I paid $210 for 3 Spoils of War. I paid $120 for a Courage of Bladehold. That shit's worth $10 now. So look, if they want to reprint CNC to the ground, I don't give a shit. I'm already bleeding. What's a little bit more, you know? So like I don't know if that's the correct answer, because there's like ripple effects, right? You have people that are not confident in holding collections, which means a lot more turn into the market, which hurts your liquidity, and like it just it's multifaceted how complex that issue is, and I'm not even going to entertain that I have the answers to that. So let's keep going. This is good, chat. Let's keep this going. I feel like we're getting somewhere. Class legendaries should be the expensive cards. I mean, some of them are. Some of them are like super cheap. The cards should cost as little as possible to allow most players to upper price being 30. Yep, I agree. Onboarding cost is really rough though. Yep, we talked about that. The one that bothers me the most is Codex of Frailty, a 2-class card, no reasonable to be. Yep. It's just that good of a card. That's the problem. You only like have to have it. I think the Armory decks are basically mini sets that are helping bridge the gap. To be honest, that's a great point. I think it's a great product that is kind of, in a soft way, kind of handling that problem. Obviously, they're not going to throw scenes. I mean, I guess they could. Okay, like who's going to stop them? It's very interesting. I know a lot of people were like hoarding sink belows and pummels and like bait for scenes and stuff like that. And I think they threw a sink below in the Armory decks, if I'm not mistaken, in the Bolton one. So like, or maybe it was the First Strike deck. I don't know. But the fact that Sink Below got a reprint, like that handles that issue. Obviously, that's not the biggest culprit. Nobody's like struggling to get Sink Belows, but if they'll do it, maybe it'll work its way up, right? It's very hard to reach a consensus and doesn't either rely on the present precedent of TCGs or personal circumstances. I agree. I lost it. Where does it go? Where did you go? I'm getting caught up in chat. Sorry, I'm way behind y'all. But y'all keep them coming. I'm just getting caught up. I'm getting caught up. CNC, yep, we're talking about price. Armory deck, yep, 95% staples though. I'm comfortable about 70 plus. Yep. Netrunner is based off making proxies legal. I'm not even touching proxies. I don't. Yeah, that's. I don't know enough about it to even have an opinion that's worth hearing, and I don't give opinions. Or I don't try to. I guess some of my opinions are probably not worth listening to, but I try to like stick to stuff that I maybe know a little bit about. People with different budgets are going to be sensitive to different price. 100% agree. 100% agree. Someone who came from MTG, it's more expensive to have broad-based modern day. Yep, absolutely. Not really in reference to smooth sailing after buying generics, Phantasmal, Spellbound Creepers, the list goes on. I mean, yeah. I can't agree or disagree because I just don't have the data points. I think it's simple as that. I mean, you could be right. It could just be stupid expensive. I just don't know. And I'm perfectly okay with saying that. We're self-selected here. I think TCG should be as cheap as possible. I do. So that's a great point. I think the best competitive environment is one where nobody. There was actually a match where it wasn't me. It was somebody played some like Levia player at a Battle Hardened or something. They didn't have Blood Rush Bellows. And I was like, man, like maybe that person would have like really done something if they just had those cards. And I agree. Like it's just a bad feeling that somebody, isn't able to compete at like travel, you can't do anything about that. Like somebody can't afford $1,000 to go to Amsterdam for a pro tour. Like I get it, right? But the cards, like that one hits in the feels. I'm not gonna lie. Like I really think that, yeah, yeah. But maybe the collecting value is a good enough point to offset that. I'm not sure, but I definitely relate to that point. I really like that. Like we already play Fab and have invested time and money. Yep. There's much better budget buy-in to modern than Fab. That's a fair point. Recently bought my last CNC. Finally sell my whole Fab collection as I've beaten the game. That's a good one. Low rarity cards should be dirt cheap. Yep, I agree. Little value collecting means less interest on a broader audience. Exactly. That's what I was meaning as like the collecting aspect. Maybe it outweighs the negative of the barrier to entry. What's up, Ed? Good to see you. I think the low barrier to entry with the fancier version, yeah, that's a good way that they've kind of started to manage that a little bit. I think the low barrier, yeah, we just talked about that. I agree. God, you guys are killing it in chat. I'm almost caught up. I'm almost there. I agree. Let most people engage with the game in its tournaments while still letting people engage with the C and TCGs. Yep. Fab has a big advantage compared to Magic that the number of playable commons and rares, which are generally less than $2, vastly outnumbered playable commons. And yep. If I'm not mistaken, MTG sets basically like have like 20 playable cards and the rest is like total draft chaff. If I'm not a big MTG guy, but like that's my understanding. No, there is. Pokemon is dirt cheap while also having whales. It's a good. I don't think you can compare them. The amount of liquidity in the Pokemon market is in a different stratosphere compared to Flesh and Blood, and a lot of that drives the collectability. Like if you buy a Pokemon card, you can sell it, right? Whereas sometimes that's not the case with Flesh and Blood. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Pokemon in a completely different level of affordability. The collectibles are high rarity cards. You don't need competitive staples or dirt cheap. I think $500 for a top tier deck, including staples, legendary equipment, is reasonable. I agree. It's how they treat chase cards compared to low rarity stuff. There's a business model that offers both. LSS just doesn't use it. Fair point. Pokemon meta decks don't normally cost about 120 max, but the collector's market kicks in post rotation. It's super weird because collectors investors complain about standard. Pokemon has strong collectability. Biggest boon to it is it's most who open cards have. Problem with Pokemon is that decks usually aren't worth buying at. Okay, so they have like a normal standard rotation, just like Magic. Starting to make sense. I was buying Red Dauntless for $8 each non-foil. Oh, it hurt. Then the set rotates out in the box. Yep, double. No interest in playing it. I mean, secondary market. Let me skip ahead a little bit. OG, yeah, the skull cap, bro. I paid like almost $200 for mine. Now it's $30. I was there when Rainbow Foil Spoils of War was like actually insane. Sold a couple Cold Foil library. I sold a Cold Foil library the day after release for $3,600. Now it's like $300. COVID TCGs are not standard. Yeah, of course. Reprint with different artwork. It's a good solution. Armory decks offer. Sorry, getting caught up. You guys are killing it. Is that correlation or causation? Great point. That's a great point. Just caught up with the chat, Tom. I agree with pretty much everything Tekla Founder said about price. Yeah. He's made some good points. He's made some really good points. Being serious for a sec, a lot of games that have longevity have some sort of worth to them. That's a fantastic point. That's a fantastic point. Yep. If nobody wants these cards because they are worthless, yep, absolutely. Are you worried the game is going to speed up even more after the Rosetta set? So we kind of got off into a finance topic indirectly. And I don't claim to be a fab finance expert. I mean, let me correct that. I do watch Stackswell videos, so I basically have a PhD in fab finance, basically. But other than that, I don't know a whole lot else. So I'm gonna leave it to those experts to come to those conclusions and understand those ripple effects and whatnot. So yeah, like I do agree. Things need to be affordable, but they need to hold value. It's a very important aspect. So let's get back toward kind of what we started on with the power level. The last thing that we discussed was the theory is that they used Part the Misfail to basically placate a little bit to the Japanese trading card game market, which is a very smart decision. And they did that via explosiveness inside the game. Right? Because a lot of the top TCGs in the Japan market have that aspect to them. So they're trying to kind of like lean into that a little bit. Not too terribly much, but a little bit. And it's understandable. So with that being said, we did mention, we did talk about that a little bit of like, is the game going to speed up even more after Rosetta? And I think not. I think that Rosetta will probably be right around where Part the Misfail is, but then after that, I think they'll pull the rug a little bit and power it down just a tad, not like a deep into like Dusk Till Dawn, Bright Lights kind of level, but just a little bit. Just taper it back just a hair, kind of give a new meta where things are really mid-rangey and there's a lot of value trading, longer games, stuff like that. Ellis says, should gatekeep tournament play unless you own 3 Marvel CNCs. All right, Nick, now we're getting somewhere. Yeah. Or if you have 1,000 deck list. 20 is optimistic for playable in the MTG set. You only own 3 deathmatch CNCs. All right, we finally made progress. I'm glad that Fab as a game with an eternal format as its premiere does not follow like Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Sounds like playing standard and Magic, and the value depreciates, but the format is eternal. It's exactly what happens, where literally you just buy a deck and it overnight it can just devalue $40 or $400 because they like reprinted everything in a tin can. Here's an honest question. If you see it, Nathan, thank you for bearing with me. Finally, somebody that understands. I might not see it because there's a lot going on. I appreciate that, but I see you. I see you. Are you enjoying the Part the Misfail format, CC? Let's talk about that, Marcus, because as you all know, I'm not on a plane right now. And if I'm not on a plane right now, if you kind of follow the streams, I never do the stream right before an event because I'm the kind of person that really likes to get into a place and kind of get settled in, make sure I'm not jet lagged, and then play an event and leave, right? I'm never the person that like shows up the night before. Just not the way I like to do it. So clearly, as everybody can see, I'm not going to Amsterdam. I qualified for Amsterdam. I think I actually got 2 invites for Amsterdam, if I'm not mistaken. But I decided not to go. It wasn't work didn't get in the way or anything like that. I just made the decision, the ultimate decision to not go. And I will break down kind of what that thought process was. So when MST came out, I was in ooh and ah, just like everybody else, like Traverse the Universe is this insane card. I knew immediately that Zen was going to be what Zen ended up. That's why before the set even released, I put him as literally at the top of the tier list. We had that good from the get-go. And I started to notice something, that The games were much shorter. There were a lot of my enjoyment in Flesh and Blood is typically derived from the number of meaningful decisions made in a 55-minute segment, right? In my 55-minute time frame of playing my match, how many meaningful decisions did I make? Now, to add validity to that statement, we have to define what a valid or what an impactful decision is, or a meaningful decision. And I think it comes down to, like, if you're playing a long drawn out fatigue matchup, like I don't think there are some meaningful decisions, but just because you're making like 1,000 tiny ass decisions doesn't mean they're all like really meaningful, right? Compare like a Zen mirror to like a Briar versus Icelander mirror, where every turn I'm thinking about, I'm doing like risk reward decision flowcharts in my mind on like, okay, do I hold this blue card? What if they have this? If they have this, what's my counterplay? Okay, is there anything in my hand that I can kind of set up an arsenal that helps me counterplay the next turn? Like, what if they have a brain freeze and I draw one attack? Oh, light bulb. Let me highly prioritize arsenaling attacks so that there's no way that he can reach into my hand and rip my only attack, because that's one of the main reasons that I lose the match. And there was that good, just the matchup really wasn't, I wouldn't call it back and forth. Hell, half the time I got demolished. The shit matchup. But it was enjoyable. There were meaningful decisions both on their turn, on my turn, everything about it. Playing against Oldham as Briar, right? Think about it. Oh, I want to swing my weapon, but that requires a pitch, which means I have to hold another card. What if he ice reacts? What if he doesn't? Right? It was so much fun having the minute decisions of, I'm going to pitch to make a rune chant now to guarantee that he can't ice react my only card, which would deny my ability to swing my Rosetta Thorn, but I'm going to make sure I keep Tunic counter up so it's not shut down by the ice shield, stalagmite, or whatever the fuck it was called. And just every aspect of those and I know the two examples I gave were against ice, and I'm not necessarily saying that ice is the answer. I do miss it though. I miss the interaction. It was a pain in the ass every time I got destroyed by Icelander. Don't get me wrong. But man, I miss it. I really miss it. The back and forth, the hedging risk, the knowing when to risk it all, and that feeling that you get because you had the fucking balls to jam down that damn Tome of Harvest and just rip the nuts. There wasn't a damn thing that they could do about it. Man. Man, I miss it. Miss the shit out of it. My favorite thing about that hero. Sorry, chat. Yeah, I miss it. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know if it's ice. I don't know if that's the solution. Because I've seen pieces of that thought process, that feeling inside the game, right? With stuff like trauma, right? Understanding when you need to risk it all and clear the board, and you know, all these different, like there's pieces in a lot of these heroes that have that, but it's the risk reward analysis, the impactful decisions on both sides of the game. Like, and it's not just silly taking risk. It's not like you can make the comparison of like, oh, well, if you want risk, roll scabs. Like, no. That's not it. It's like, I don't care about doing the I'm not just trying to gamble. Like, I'm just trying to make minute mathematical decisions that increase the odds that I have very profitable EV. That's what I miss. And why did I say all that? Well, the idea is, you asked 15 minutes ago, Marcus, what I thought about the meta currently. And the answer is I don't feel any of that. I don't feel, when I sit down and play a game of Flesh and Blood, do I enjoy it? Sure. Is it have that perfect mechanical design that the game was built around? Absolutely. Still does. But I feel like there's a lot of matches where I sit down, and if the cards are stacked in the exact same order and you put any two players against each other, and you like, or hell, you could technically build a training model with AI and like train it. And I think that you could there would be, I think you would get the same result, is the point that I'm trying to get at. Very convoluted way. I don't know. Some people are going to say that's a cop out for saying that variance is the answer in the matchup, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that. I'm not, but I think everybody can kind of agree that there's more variance in Flesh and Blood right now than there probably ever has been, from like a matchup perspective, and probably in-game perspective as well. So I still love the game. I'm still spending enormous amounts of time creating content for the game, and I enjoy it. I'm just waiting for that. Just waiting for that again. So, what I would recommend to the players, LSS can only go off the information that they have, right? If the meta goes in a direction that the majority of the players do not like, but everybody attends X event, then that gives them the data point that they're moving in the right direction. Right? And yeah. So I'm doing my part to say that I'm not trying to be like negative Nancy or anything like that, but I'm just I'm not a huge fan of the way things are. So I'm not going to go to the event. It's the first tier of I've been to every single tier 4 event Flesh and Blood has ever offered until Friday. I've qualified and been to every single one until Friday. I hate that I don't get to see everybody. It really sucks. But to be honest, that's the FOMO. The FOMO is seeing the people. That's the part that's in the reception. I want to see stuff about Rosetta because we're kind of excited about that. But yeah, I'm doing my best to give a solid data point. By the way, just read the Yuki post and you agree. Yeah, I saw Yuki's post and I wouldn't use the harsh language of the game kind of sucks right now. I think that the game is currently placating toward some people that like other things, and that's fine. Because I'm not going to say that everybody should enjoy what I enjoy, right? That's just wild. But yeah. I don't think the game sucks. There's no shot. There's zero chance that's true. What I do know is that in my eyes, it's not the best it's ever been. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think you don't ever want the people. This kind of holds true to anything that's in the realm of being creative. You want people to push boundaries. You don't want, like, I don't want LSS to play it safe. I don't want them to create the 13th Raging Onslaught. It's not what I want. I want them to try stuff. I want them to, expand on things. Sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss, sometimes it's both, right? You looked at the whole discussion. I did not look at the whole discussion. I just looked at the one little thing where she just said that, not gonna lie, the game kind of sucks right now. It is what I read. But I respect the opinion, right? I do respect the opinion. Let me get caught up in chat real quick. Meaningful decisions each match is what I miss as well. I'm gonna be real. I just dislike the idea of gaining cards for blocking with equipment. Feels super bad. Sounds like some LL skirmishes would be good for your mental health. But Brad Breyer is terrible in Living Legend. I dislike decks like Zen and Kano where you can do the right choices and die anyway. Yes, but it does add excitement. Yes, it's very one-sided excitement, but it does add excitement. I miss playing against Lexi so much. Blocking isn't much fun right now since the aggro decks aren't built around on hits. There's some validity behind that as well. Sometimes you play the game, sometimes the game plays itself out. Yep. Players did not make it happen. Fab just played out. Yep. Like CNC was good. They could sack the Arsenal. Yep. I think the biggest factor in lack of enjoyment of the meta is there are no neutral cards that improve matchups. There's a lot of polarization. That'd be my second point, is there is a lot of polarization. But once again, polarization is required to have an exciting card game. Now, we can have a very good discussion on what is too polarized, what's not polarized enough. How do you, what do you set the threshold of polarization? Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say two casual people play each other and it's a 99-1 matchup. But if two good players play, it's a 65-35. Is that acceptable? Some would say no, because like nobody should ever have a 1% chance to win, right? And some would say that, yeah, that's perfectly fine because they're playing inside that realm, right? And yeah, like that. Those are perfectly valid questions, and I don't know who you placate to. I think it comes down to what does LSS prioritize more, the competitive scene or the casual scene? And historically, if you're a competitive player, I hate to tell you this, historically, card games have thrived on their casual basis, not their competitive basis. I personally am not specifically talking about the post itself, but rather the discussion within the post about what making Traverse more powerful could actually do, beneficial. Yep. I need to go back and read it. It's definitely a point where recent design decisions cause friction with the older players. Because this is a key shift from OG Fab and its roots. Yep. I've played Crew since first, and I love Fab and have met tons of friends, but honestly am burned out on the hyper competitiveness at everything, even armories. I can relate to that. I mean, well, I can't relate because I don't think I've ever truly been burnt out on Flesh and Blood. I mean, after a big event, I like to take a week off just because there's no real reason to like keep the grind going. But that probably also has a lot to do with I take a very balanced approach. I'm not going to sit there for 10 hours a day and spam games, and that's just not what I'm going to do. So maybe I have a very healthy approach to the competitiveness, and yeah. Where was I? Where is this post? They're referring to the one on. It was on Twitter. I don't know. If you go to Yuki's profile and go to her replies, I think you'll see it. I'm just bummed right now as a newer player. Why? Why are you bummed as a newer player? Oh, it looks like you mentioned it below. I'll get to it in just a second. At least Kano has tons of counters and requires basically learning a whole new game. That is true. That is true. Prism makes me sick. Yeah, Spectra is the thing. Heavy Hitters was just so much fun, and now suddenly all the new toys for Warriors have become obsolete. Okay. I think Prism was already rough matchup. Now Enigma, it's even worse in tournament play. It's just so baffling how we go from Olympia and Betsy to okay. So Gamma, let's talk for a sec. Let's discuss that because it's valid, right? And I specifically know a lot about this subject because of my teammate, right? Josh. I've watched Josh for over 2 years now. Find the best way to make Warrior competitive. And 90% of the time, it has not been competitive, right? He just gets to where he's gone off of skill alone. Out of all the years I've known Josh in Flesh and Blood, the heavy hitter season was the only meta where Warrior was actually like a really, really, really competitive option. And you're right. That window of opportunity lasted, what, 3 months? It lasted 3 months. Kasai went from winning a calling one weekend to in the C tier of most content creators tier list. And yeah, like if I was in that spot, I'd be very frustrated. I would be very frustrated too. But I would urge you to try something else. That's the best thing that I could advise. Because at the end of the day, there's always going to be somebody that has a hero and it's not where they want it to be, right? But I do agree that the meta had a very radical shift, and it's unfortunate that it took the spotlight from a class that really hasn't had the spotlight a whole lot, right? A Warrior's never LL'd. I don't think there's one even particularly close. I mean, I understand the frustration. By the way, Nathan, a couple weeks ago, I asked you about how to prepare a mental game going into an event, and your advice greatly helped me. I top 8'd the event that weekend. Wanted to say thanks. I appreciate that, Brad. I'm glad it helped you. And keep those top 8s up. Good luck in skirmish season, or if in Amsterdam if you're going to that. It's red flags when people say, "Yeah, I'm fine with Kano." I'm fine with Kano because he's very fun, unique, has never actually been an impressive force in the meta. Yeah, Kano's always been like an answer, and never like truly the question. He does ask a question, but he's never been like the meta question. True, Betsy and Olympia are leagues apart from medium playability. So I've said this before in several streams that I think Olympia and Betsy were specifically designed to fix something in limited. I think that the number one reason they were injected into the game was to help fix / balance the limited aspect of heavy hitters. And I think, once again, this is pure speculation and theory. I think they made the active decision that they knew when this hero hit the shelves, it was going to be dog shit. Like they were like, "Yep, send it." Or ship it. The Lego ad, that shit was funny. But I think they have a plan to like they're not going to let a hero exist in the game forever, or in the normal they're never going to let a hero not LL, right? Like the hero would truly have to be that bad. I think they're going to inject something somewhere. Maybe they use a first strike deck, maybe an armory deck, something. They will fix it. But of course, we have to wait for that. Am I the only one who loves Fab more than ever? No. I think anybody that kind of like Ty, I don't think that's outlandish at all. I think anybody, like, if you have any friends that play Yu-Gi-Oh, this is the perfect time to introduce them to the game of Flesh and Blood. This is the most opportune time there has ever been. If you have a friend that plays One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, any like highly explosive, kind of like how we talked about earlier, if you have any friends that play those types of games, you have the best chance now, more than ever, to get them to play the game of Flesh and Blood. And I don't think it's particularly close. So, Ty, I don't think you're crazy for loving Fab now more than ever. It's just your thing, and that's perfectly fine. People like what they like. Like, I despise the gameplay of Yu-Gi-Oh, but clearly, what didn't they have? If I'm not mistaken, like a few months ago, they had literally the largest TCG tournament ever. Period. It was like a YCS in some Asian country, and they had like, I don't remember the number, but I swear it was like 5,000 or 6,000 registered players in like one event or something. Don't quote me on it. It's been a while since I read it, but like clearly there's people that enjoy the game, right? Whether they're there because they love pain or they truly enjoy the game, I don't know, but you know, they're paying money to go into those events and play, right? So clearly they enjoy it enough. So no, I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy at all. And I think that there's probably half the player base that feel exactly how you do right now. Just the people who are really, really loving it right now might not be as vocal. And that's something that we have to consider. I loved Heavy Hitter Meta for that. Dory Hatchets almost won the Pro Tour. Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. Hey, Dorinthia was competitive in early days. That's right. So Blitz Webcam is when I started the game. That's why I spent $210 on Spoils of Wars. So that was the first deck that I ever played. It was Skirmish Season 2. That's what you're referring to. Yep. Those were the days. The whiplash of starting the game on a strong A-tier hero as Kasai to being lost right now hurts. Yes. But what I can promise you is if you find something else and you can push through it, I guarantee you it'll be amazing. It's the exact same feeling as when you go to your Armory, you lose 30 straight games because Fab is just that game where I can't tell you when I got started, there were so many players that would make a post on Twitter saying like after 4 months they finally either won their first Armory or won their first Armory game in the game of Flesh and Blood. And they just felt so proud of it. And, you know, like that's how the game is. But once again, it's okay if every now and again the game kind of steps away from that. Because I'm very confident in LSS's ability to kind of drive it a little bit back. If they can go from look, this is the only explanation you need. They went from Tales of Aria, right? Tales of Aria, Starvo, OG Prism. They went from all that to like Lexi to Bright Lights, Dusk Till Dawn, like way down. Then went up to Heavy Hitters and went up to Part the Misfell, right? So they've been all over on powerful, underpowered, perfect medium, just everywhere. And they've been in each spot multiple times. I'm very confident in LSS's ability to steer the ship however they want. And it's okay that they went over here for a little bit. It's fine. It's not. Is that my preferred direction? No, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I waited a year to be able to bust out the hatchet bolt finally, and it lasted one set. Reese, that name sounds familiar. If I'm not mistaken, Reese, we played in. Did we play in the Battle Hardened? I mean, there's a real argument Hatch's Bolton is the best dual-handed warrior right now. I do believe it is. I do believe it is. I played against one in at the Battle Hardened, and the second I understood what they were doing, I was like, that's cool. That's cool. I've left all my warrior cards behind now as Dory main, and instead of switching to another warrior, I got Mechanoid and just having as much fun as I can playing Max. That's the way to do it, right? Just try something else. That's what I can encourage you to do. I've been hopping around from hero to hero to hero. The last Briar game that I played was Nationals, not this obviously, but last Nationals. So exactly a year. I played that hero for over 2 years, right? Or since the day she came out, played it. And yeah, I've been like soul searching for the past year, but I've also in it would I prefer to just play her? Of course. Like it's not even a question. But I've been expanding my game knowledge, understanding other heroes, play styles, stuff like that, and truly just getting more fundamental understanding of the game so that when something equivalent comes out, I'm ready. That's easier said than done, but that's what we've been doing. Love the heavy meta except for Prism. Yeah, but Prism wasn't super relevant in the heavy meta. So Ratney's never LLing. I mean, yeah, so far you're right. If only for limited, why not just make young versions only? So some of that could be, why would you not just make young only? Because maybe they had plans, they just weren't done, or they couldn't implement it in the same set and keep the limited balance, right? Because if you just make young, I don't know. I feel obviously they can always go back like they did with Kasai, but I feel like it's much more of a commitment if you do that. Because the support infrastructure is there. They just need to enhance it, right? I love Fab so much, honestly, but I do hope they fix this kind of card design. I'm sure they'll figure it out. I don't enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! I've been a Fab fan since WTR. Well, we're glad to have you. And hey, you like what you like, Ty. Simple as that. The thing I don't understand is people dooming about the format. LSS has said multiple times they want formats that differ from one another and the game will go fast. That's just people not getting what they like. I don't care if you're in TCGs. I don't like if people don't have what they like or they're involved in something they don't like, they're going to complain about it. Like that's just human nature at this point. And I'm not saying they're wrong in doing so, but just take it as a grain of salt. Like, okay, they are not enjoying the game right now. That's fine. The worst thing you can do is let that affect how you enjoy the game, right? And that's okay. Maybe they're not enjoying it as much, whatever. Like the main thing is you just don't want to be toxic about it. You want to like provide input, maybe criticism that like has substance behind it, kind of thing. Like basically what I'm trying to do. I also don't think the meta is in too bad of a spot overall in a sense that Zen is the whole issue. That's a fair point. But I'm telling you, if Zen was not around, I think you're downplaying the impact that Enigma would have. I think if we didn't have Zen, everybody would be complaining about Enigma in the exact same way. I was like that with Oldham and Blitz. I lost so many matches to Ira and Prism, but I learned how to play and still love the game. Absolutely. Yeah, we played at the Battle Hardened. Good to see you, Reese. Thanks for stopping by. I thought that your deck design was really unique. And the second that I saw you basically never play a charge card and just use it for go again and leverage the value on the boots, I was I knew instantly. I remember I told you, I was like, oh, oh, that's what you're doing. And I just love the deck design. Very well done. I think that deck gets nothing but better in with the Armory deck. Obviously, a couple armor pieces. You can't forgo the boots, obviously, but um, I think the deck just gets nothing but better. And yeah, I think that it's got legs. It's got legs. Honestly, I think you are where I was when Starville was around. As an older man, I stopped playing for a little while, and now I'm back playing a ton. Hey, I'm looking forward to this new set, everybody. I cannot express how much I'm waiting for this set. I mean, if you see me on Twitter, it's like every day. It's like I was talking about how I think Florian used to be an ex Lowe's employee, and yeah, the garden section customers pushed him beyond his breaking point. And all kind. I'm just talking about Rosetta, and it ain't even out yet. We know like 5 cards. Not gonna lie, I kind of want Fi to get some love. Yeah, I mean everybody thought he was getting legendary boots for a while there. I was also the hatchet bolt. Yep, I remember that. How would Zen do if Ice was around? I don't honestly think like I think Zen would absolutely destroy Icelander, if we're being honest. Blues, like you got 30 blues and you're aggressive. That's like literally what Icelander hates. Riptide's sadness rubbed off on Nathan. Riptide said, "No friends for Green Trap Man." Sorry, always yells at me. I actually enjoyed playing Riptide. That's actually in the past year. If I'm being honest, the 2 heroes that I've enjoyed playing the most were Riptide and Azalea. And it's, if we're being honest, it's because they're technically the closest to Runeblade as far as like competitive viability. Because they have a bunch of attacks and non-attacks. So it would only make sense. Brian Gottlieb also pretty significantly said Betsy and Olympia would have expansion slot support, so I feel they added them late and waited to. Yeah, like I said, I think they just needed them for a direct answer in heavy hitters, and they were going to finish flushing them out in the future expansion slots, which is perfectly fine. Ice doesn't hurt Zen too much. Yeah, I think it doesn't either. Yeah, I agree. CLF is probably like the only thing that actually taxes him enough. Um, Brain freeze, fused, blizzard, even Arctic incarceration seems like it'd be pretty good. I don't know. Brain freeze, like I, it's not like Runeblade where you can like take his only attack. Yes, you can take his theoretical only starter, but actually with bonds being removed, the deck actually became more consistent because they just replaced those with like more starters and stuff like that. So I really like, obviously Blizzard because it's on the fly disruption, maybe, but Arctic, I don't think it does anything. Thank you for the kind words on Hatchet's deck is good spot except for Cursin matchup, so we'll have its time again. I think you're just waiting for the opportunity, but I guarantee you, honestly, maybe when Rosetta drops, I think that's a deck that would do very good into like a split damage. You know, I don't think these wizards are going to be explosive by any means. So as long as your blue count is high enough, which I know it's higher than normal Bolton, I think it has an opportunity. I also feel a bit lost with what to do. I want to play my main, but also don't enjoy losing every armory. But I also don't want to just build meta deck. Yeah, that's so. For those of you who have watched a lot of the streams, I did a stream. It had to be in the very beginning of May, and I basically sat in front of chat and I literally asked chat. I said, "Hey, or anybody that watches this in the VOD, whatever I'm about to say, let me know if I'm being a little bitch." And I said those exact words. And I was like, this is what I don't like. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. And I'll never forget it. I had a bunch of people private message me saying that I was being a bitch. Right? let's not sugarcoat it. But one in particular, Guy Cohen messaged me and sent me like a little almost a write up basically. In it, there's a little excerpt of like, yeah, bro, to answer your question, yeah, you're kind of being a little bitch. And but he like broke it down on why and like, you know, explained like, hey, if you're signing up to play on a competitive level, like this is you need to swallow that pill. This is what you're signing up for, right? Kind of thing. And what he told me, I was like, damn, he's right. So I think like the second you say I'm going to be a competitive flesh and blood player, I think you have to take the punches. I think that's the moment that you kind of, I don't want to say like lose the right, but like it's like what you're signing up for. LSS presents problems via new cards, and it's your job, not job, but like, you know, being a competitive player, you're trying to solve the meta, you're trying to create a solution to the problem presented. And yeah, so it's frustrating for people that are not competitive and they have not made that that commitment, or you know, whatever the case may be. But yeah, 100%, I do agree. At the Armory level, it is very frustrating, right? But once again, I guess you have to ask yourself is, what is the Armory about? Why are you going to the Armory? And obviously we play games because we want to win. Nobody is signing up. Well, some people play League of Legends to lose every single day, but you know, most of the time, any game that we engage in, we want to be good at it. We want to, you know, we want to win. It's just a better feeling than losing, right? Simple as that. But at the same time, I don't know. For me, I enjoy the grind. Like I enjoy making connections and learning things. Like when I was prepping for this stream and I was putting together, you know, looking up the TCG market, like what's good, what's bad, you know, I even have stats here of like, I went as deep as they increased I didn't discuss it earlier, but I had this theory that they increased the variance with part the Mistveil because in Asian culture specifically, like they're all in on like, you know, gambling and just hell, they're so invested in like luck that if you go to a lot of hotels in like Hong Kong and place, I got all this information from Josh. They skip the fourth floor. If you go in the elevator, it goes 1, 2, 3, and 3B and 5 because 4 is an unlucky number. Like they take that stuff that serious. And apparently 8 is like their lucky number. And if you remember, the Beijing Summer Olympics were in 2008, and they actually had the opening ceremony on August 8th of 2008, which is the date of 888. So like they take that stuff like super, super serious. So if you have a demographic that you're trying to like break into that market, you want to like placate the product to that demographic, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So I kind of think that that's what they did. But yeah, the point I was trying to make is I like the grind of like learning stuff, acquiring skill sets and stuff like that, and handling problems. It's something that I enjoy. So if I was going to Armories, I would be looking at it as, this is me personally, I don't know what you prefer, but like I would really like the idea of just going there, and every time I got my ass kicked, I would love the puzzle of understanding why and trying to solve it. And could I make changes to my non-meta decks that maybe target certain things that are in my Armory and turn it into this little targeting exercise of like, how can I make this deck beat this deck? Go from there. I also understand you signed up to play the game competitively thing, but I compete because I like the game. If the game is way different, that might push someone to not compete. And that's a very fair argument. That's a fair argument. And in the TCG market, there's a lot of options right now. So I think it's very, there's a lot of choices. Every one of us as TCG consumers have a lot of choices, and it's actually one of those Harbies. Jeez, I must be hungry. It must be one of those hobbies where you can't. It's very difficult to play a lot of TCGs, right? And if you do, you can't go that deep on each one, right? It's typically a hobby where people have like their TCG, and they might have like one side TCG that they play like once every other weekend or something. I would imagine. I don't have any data on that. I'm just speculating. But you know, we have a lot of choices that we could play, that we could spend our time on, that we could pick as our TCG, and Fab has to do its best to prove that it's the best one. Which I think it is. I still think it is 100%. It has the best mechanics. It's 100% the best. They just went in one direction for a little bit of time. I guarantee you they'll reel it back in. They're just trying to accomplish something. I beg you just to give them the benefit of the doubt that once they accomplish what they are trying to accomplish, that they'll recalibrate. But I think that this current direction is not an accident. It's not they didn't test it enough. It's not they didn't do this or that. It's not that they didn't do any of that. I think that this was a very tailored approach for a very specific outcome, which I think was a very intelligent decision. And I don't want to even use the term they'll correct it later, because I don't think it's a mistake. I think that they will just recalibrate going forward after they accomplish what they are intending to. I mean, I'm going to have fun and enjoy some games and friends, but struggle with the fun part some days. Yeah, absolutely. And everybody, like I said earlier, everybody enjoys winning more. I mean, that's kind of, the nature of anything that has any competitive aspect, right? New Stone Rain card is an 11 out of 10. Riptides Rise Up. So if I'm not mistaken on it, well, let me actually reread that card. I haven't read it in spoilers. Stone Rain. So it's a 0/4 arrow. And it says if this has an aim counter, it gets dominate. And when this hits a hero, they banish a card face down from their hand. At the beginning of their next end phase, they return it. Okay. So it's basically at the beginning of their next end phase. Wait. Yeah. So you intimidate a card and they're forced to arsenal that. So it's a forced arsenal is the way. If you hit, they either have to take an IP penalty or I think it's a great arrow. The question is like, how convenient is it? It's actually pretty good. Holy shit. I was going to say, like, how are you getting the aim counter and dominating? But it gets dominate from the aim counter. So all you have to, that's pretty fucking good. I'm not gonna lie. It is pretty good. As long as you can give the aim counter. But even if it's not, it's like a 0/4. Like it's not the worst thing on the planet. The last two sets have been amazing for limited. And once again, maybe that was the higher priority. Maybe. Any tips on deck building in this game? I usually am very into deck building for TCGs, but something about Fab is just so obtuse. That's actually a great question. And so on the YouTube channel, I've just recently started a series called Learning Curve. I know I'm behind on it, and I apologize for anybody waiting on the videos. The next one should drop approximately on Tuesday, is what we're looking at. And I'm just doing a learning series on simply just all aspects of Flesh and Blood. The first one was on like turn cycle analysis and like card evaluation and stuff like that. And we're just going to go. So I will do a whole video probably on deck building and stuff like that. I could do a whole stream on deck building. So be on the lookout for that. It's not going to be the next video, but it could be the video following. I 100% believe Fab will change the meta back into what I enjoy one day. The game is great, and I'll keep playing. That's a great attitude to have. Fab is still young in terms of other games. Magic has a 30-year portfolio. LSS is still learning the ropes and still has time to get things right. That's 100% correct. And at the same time, we also don't want them to just copy and paste from Magic, right? That's not what. If we wanted that, we would just play Magic, right? So let them try stuff. Let them scrape their knees. Let them fall down and get back up and learn something. You know, like there's nothing wrong with that. Riptide, but Barb Castaway is the way, 100%. Oh, is it like a very easy? I don't even remember what Barb Castaway does, chat. I know it. I can't even tell you. I've never used that bow, except in limited. Which Rune Blade are you looking forward to the most from Rosetta? Right now, it's probably Aurora, just because I think her hero ability allows for more choices in like deck building and stuff like that. Whereas Florian, I think, is really going to be like, yeah, you're going to make auras. You know, and like you gotta make auras kind of thing. And I don't want to get like too. I like my Rune Blade decks to kind of have options in how you want to construct it. But when they were first announced, I was way more excited about Florian because I like the embodiment of Earth more than the embodiment of Lightning. That was my favorite aspect of Briar. However, after kind of reading through the hero abilities and understanding the different possible outcomes, I think I'm leaning more toward Aurora now. Am I the only one that finds it weird that their approach was higher power and higher variance, but made decks based on blues over power, which screams consistency? Well, that's part of, right? So like here's the counter argument is like, how do you guarantee higher variance and higher power without the introduction of a little bit of consistency? Right? Because if you just say, okay, our goal is higher power and higher variance without the consistency, well, congratulations, you're now a Rune Blade. And Rune Blade's not good right now. And you don't want to release a set that is basically built like Rune Blade when you're trying to placate to an audience or acquire an audience from a different area that just doesn't vibe with, or it's hard to get excited for because it's not playable, right? So I think they had to push the envelope just a little bit, and that's okay. Look forward to playing Roboman. Wizard shenanigans. Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with Wizard that's not kill you in one turn. I think Icelander was a very well designed hero. See what they do with it next. Looking forward. Your copy and paste from MTG thing is the exact reason I hate the entire illusionist class. Brad, I kind of agree with you. Out of all the classes, illusionist is the one that I hate the absolute most. Not even close. Not even close. Germinate, X equals 3, next turn, Tunic, Ninth Blade. Hey, sounds kind of good to me. Sounds kind of good to me. Well, I think I've literally been talking for like literally 2 hours straight. I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. So I think we're going to wind down. If you have any more questions, throw them in chat. I'd love to get to them real quick, but we're going to start to kind of wind down a little bit. I want to say the chat interaction today was absolutely phenomenal. I thought I was going to get on here and talk for like an hour and the chat was going to dry up and hop off. But half the stream, I was behind on chat. So thank all of you for the interaction. And I really do appreciate it. And I hope you got something from it, whether it be, oh, this kind of makes sense now, or if that's true, maybe just a different way to think about it, or maybe it's just comfort in like buying time to the next set. I don't know. I just hope you got something from it. That's all I hope to do. That's the goal. If anybody is attending any events, especially including the Pro Tour or the Calling in Amsterdam, I wish you the absolute best of luck at that. And please stay safe in your travels and hopefully no more delays. Are you coming to the Battle Hardened Columbus in November? That's like, I've been to a Battle Hardened in Columbus. That's like right on the radius of like how far I would travel for a Battle Hardened. So maybe. It's obviously going to depend on how close it is to Worlds and what that whole situation is. But yeah. I don't want to be the language nerd, but placate does not mean what you think it is. Placate means to like put off, right? How did I use it? I could have been wrong. I don't know. I think placate means to like put off. I could be wrong though. I am a victim of the Alabama education system, so it is entirely possible that was a mistake. Thank you as always, Nathan. Always enjoy the streams. Thank you for the positivity. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for joining me. It means the world. Riptide needs an aim counter quiver. Hey, you might get one. Do you think Fab has a spot for another format that is not Blitz, LL, or CC? Does it have a spot for another format? I think that tentatively the answer to that question is no. However, I think once see, I am a victim of the Alabama education system. That's not what placate means. Okay, make someone less angry or hostile. Thank you. See, what a productive stream when hopefully you guys can take something away from it and I can grow my vocabulary. Look at that. Everybody's a winner. I appreciate it though. So I would say that currently there's not room for another format because like LL hasn't even taken off. Blitz has kind of fell off, Once those take a foothold and like they're like really big formats, then of course. But I think we have to get those established first, and then we can kind of do that. It's my thought process anyway. Random thought. My biggest worry from Rosetta is Inset will be a monster. She's already so close to being so broken. I don't know. Just on the basis of like what they can put in, right? Because I don't think that she's going to get an expansion slot card because there will be room blade cards that she can play. With that being said, I don't know what Runeblade cards they're going to make that would fit Vincent. in I don't know. I think Viscerize is definitely going to get a bump. 100%. Going to get a bump in some way because his hero ability just needs to see the word Runeblade, right? So really interested to see that. But I'm not feeling worried about Vinny. I think there's a solid chance that Vincent could actually. It's crazy. Right now she's the best Runeblade, but it could work out to where she might be the worst. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. And on my last tier list, I think Vinny's fine. She's at the bottom of B tier, so it'll be interesting. It will be interesting. Yeah, but it has to be Rune Chant Generation that does not have the word elemental on it. And that's where it gets a little hairy. I haven't had much of an issue with getting aim counters on arrows with just barb. I mean, hey, maybe it's enough. Are you excited for either of the wizards? I am excited for the life gain just because I'm just my thought process is I think the hero ability is going to say every time you gain life, you ping them for 1. That's what I think the hero ability on the Earth one is. For every instance of life gain, you hit them with an arcane. It could even say like you hit them with arcane equal to the amount of life gain. You start getting really close to like busted shit, but like maybe it depends on like what the rate would be on that transaction. It would turn Red Sigil into a monster, but we're getting into better cards, so maybe. Runeblade chess piece that works around Warmongers. That would be the dream. That would be the dream. Front pumps that make rune chants for Florian would make Vin nuts. I'm hoping if we do get those, they're Earth. Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways. Vin set, if you think about it, it seems like a complex hero, and she kind of is, but I think she's actually very easy to change something on a card to not really work with her by either increasing the cost, whatever the case may be. I think it's but to finish the other question, the lightning wizard, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, chat. I don't really give a shit. I'm not really interested in any way. Sorry if that hurts anybody's feelings, but like just nothing about that hero really is enticing to me. Maybe that changes when we obviously get the hero text and stuff like that. But nothing so far is really like I'm telling you, take this one to the bank. I don't think the lightning wizard is going to be able to wear regular armor. Take it to the bank. That's my prediction for this weekend. Lightning wizard cannot wear normal armor. Might be like a Teklo kind of thing going on where like maybe they can physically equip it, but to do their thing, they have to wear a certain set of equipment kind of thing. Is New Moon in a high tier? That's a Blitz hero, and I don't do Blitz. I haven't played a Blitz game in probably 2 years, so I am not the person to ask that question to. I wish I could give you an answer, but I'm not going to lie to you. What do you think the robot might have as an ability? I couldn't even begin. I mean, it gets sigil effect. It gets effects based off of the amount of sigils. So there's probably some sigil token that he will create. If I had to guess. And then like making those tokens will amp his weapon or allow him to amp whatever. That would be my guess. Can't wear armor and makes a sigil token. Or a token with the word sigil on it. I think given the spec, it can't be pinged for the amount healed. You're probably right. It has to be every instance. Yeah, or else it would just say +3. Now that I think about it, yeah, you're right. You're right. It would be every instance you just ping or something like that. If you gain life, you may instead deal damage. So hear me out. What if, hot take, what if any time you are to heal damage, you can instead create a life token? I'm just using verbiage, right? You create a life token. And the token goes on the board. And the token says at the start of your turn, it pops. And you gain twice as much health or deal damage to your opponent. That'd be kind of sick, right? Like, that means there'll be so many decision points, right? Because you could either gain the life right when the card resolves. So it's if it said +1, +1, +1, you could like go and heal 1 because you really need it to stay out of a threshold. Then you can make 2 life tokens, and then you could pop 1 of the life tokens to deal damage, then pop 1 to heal you even more. And it's like an investment effect where you like literally you're making it where you don't get the effect right now, but you pop the life token on the beginning of your next turn and ship it. I think that would be kind of sick, right? A little life token action. I mean, all right, that's my hot takes for both heroes for Amsterdam. That's what we're going with, right? Because I'm all about one of my favorite mechanics in any, like, whether it be like video game, because I'm big on like strategy games and stuff like that, or video games or card games, is like the ability to like invest value. Like, hey, I'm gonna not get the value immediately right now, but man, like next turn, get even more. I just think that would be like really, really sweet. Yeah, and the life token, the life token could be a sigil, but the lightning wizard I don't think is gonna make a life token, but maybe he makes his own token. I could see it. Wizard heroes make token sigils. Yeah. Oh, that's sick, because then Florian, anytime you make an aura token, you make another one. So he gets to double down. He can convert. Maybe there's a way that like he can make life tokens. And then oh, bro, that's such a good idea. That's a really good idea, chat. Life token. You heard it here first. Also, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I think you're right. Rosetta is the answer to Misveil. Split damage will either race or defend well, and the hero that's healing is slowing the game down. And then you outlast, because once they flip over and they ran through all their chi, they kind of get burned out. We saw that when Naib got fatigued by Tekla of Austin. Granted, if he had the Kakara weapon, he would have 100% won that game. But it just shows that, you run out of gas, right? And the heroes who are equipping stuff to stay at parity. Yep. I think pinging is the lightning wizard thing, and amp is the earth wizard given the new channel. It could be. It could be. We should be seeing Aurora's signature weapon next week, right? When the first try. I mean, we should. And here's my prediction on the weapon. I think Aurora's main weapon is free. I think it's going to say something along the lines of, if you have created an embodiment of lightning token, attack. Action attack, right? Where it's like Vin Set's weapon, but instead of the life sacrifice, you just have to meet the checkpoint of creating an embodiment of lightning, which would allow for you to leverage those 1-cost lightning cards, which are very important in lightning, right? Electrify, Heaven's Claw. You know, like there's so many like one costs that you're really going to need that resource curve to fit, because you need to pay 2 for the embodiment. You need to pay 1 for those one costs, right? So that's my prediction on that. You just get, everybody's getting all the predictions this stream. This is it. Put it in the archives. But I cannot wait when we get that list. Hey, Nathan, I've been thinking that to counter talents being really good because they have access to broader card pools in with bonds, power with Revel. Yep. What if certain cards have like a talentless restriction only? That's a great way to handle it, right? Give us incentives to play the non-talented versions. I'm all for it. Also, another way that you could achieve that is just make a card that only fits that here. Like, for example, the coercion, the Arachne card, the blue reaction that like gives it all the contract cards go again. Like, theoretically, you could run that in any assassin, but it only makes sense in Arachne. I think that accomplishes kind of the same thing without incorporating a complicated keyword. So I agree. I agree. Zero cost would make sense. Her hero ability is likely charging is bold. Yeah, I agree. What single thing do you want to see from Vis or hope Vis gets? I kind of gave a hint to it on Twitter today, actually, is I want to see an equipment piece that generates a resource regularly. And what this will allow Vis to do is stay on his Mauve Shrill kind of rotation, but has the ability to fit in Nebula Blade instead of Reaping Blade, which is like night and day, right? Like massive, massive difference. So I think that's what Vis needs, is like the projection that I had on the prediction on Twitter that I had was a chess piece that says, if you've played an attack and non-attack action this turn, instant gain 1 resource, right? Which sounds a little busted, and it kind of is, but Runeblade's in a shit spot, right? And I think that's what you're going to need to like really pull Vis out, unless you just give him like a bunch of tools that he can just go ham with, right? Maybe it could, another avenue that they could go is give him a lot more one cost go again non-attack actions to make Nebula Blade viable. They need to make Nebula Blade the weapon. If they do that, they've probably helped Vis enough. I want the legendary chess piece more than the helmet, because historically Runeblade wants Crown of Providence to decrease the odds of bricking on all attacks or all non-attacks. So if I could have it my way, I would have a chess piece. I don't know. That almost sounds like Max all over again. I mean, it could be. But a warrior like Bolton couldn't play it. Yeah. Historically, aren't light heroes the only ones with zero cost weapons? No, you have Bolton with Raiden. You have Vincent that technically doesn't cost anything. It costs life, but I'm sorry. They're the ones that have weapons that don't cost anything that actually attack. Yes, illusionists have weapons that don't cost anything, but they don't attack. I want an equipment piece that says you can destroy to fuse 1 element. See, I don't think they're going back in on the fuse. I think they're going to like let it be and go kind of do something new. I don't think they're going to double down on fuse. I could be wrong. Maybe there's like a little bit of fuse in there. I just got here. Is it the meta or is it you? Technically, we talked about a lot. I think it's both. I know that's kind of a cop out, but it was a long discussion. Definitely a good one though. I highly recommend you go back and see it. Chat was very interactive. Had some really good questions. Really good questions. Fulminate, spiritual successor to CMH and embodiment of lightning. I actually built a Fulminate combo deck where I had Briar, and I would cash out all my equipment to make a bunch of silver, and then I would take that silver and play Knick-Knack Bric-a-Bracs to go get Amulet of Earths and one E-Pot, and I would pop the E-Pot to play Fulminate, fuse it with whatever, then I'd play Force of Nature, and then everything else in the deck would either be a blue card and 0 for 4 attack actions. And literally what I would do is I would just infinite combo. And if I ever draw a blue, I would pop the silver that I had from the cash out to draw another card and then just keep going. 7. Or it would be 7 from the Fulminate because it gets +3. And then the Amulet of Earth would be either 8, 9, or 10. And I would just be able to go infinite. It was really cool. It worked. The problem was the average online time was turn 7 or 8, and yeah, so but it was really cool. It was really cool. It was something that I was building for the first world championship. I think it was a little project that I had that was very interesting, but I was literally cashing out my Rosetta Thorn, bro. Like, it was wild. It was wild. I want a generic equipment that lets your hero become an element or talent of your choice. That just gets wild. That's a balancing like nightmare. Maybe one day. Maybe one day. Do you think there'll be an adult Terra in Rosetta in the Spectrum slot? I do. I do think that there will be one. 100%. All right. Well, like 30 minutes ago, I said we were going to wind down the stream. So once again, I want to just say thanks everybody for being here. It means the world. Also, thank you so much for interacting in chat. I was behind on chat almost the whole stream. Very interactive. Thank you so much. I hope everybody gained something. If you're traveling for Amsterdam, please be safe. Hope no more delays, and best of luck at the event. My guess to take it down, or one person that I'm really expecting big things from, I'm doubling down. I'm gonna say Pat Eshby from the Runaways. I think he's just got that dog in him. I think he can do it. I think he can do it. So I'm rooting for Pat. I think he's gonna go far on this one for sure. And we'll see. We'll see. Great stream as always. See you next week. Thank you, Brad. Thank you for being here. And I will do exactly that. I will see everybody next week. Thank you so much for being here. Take care, everybody.